So today on this beginner series for using Final Cut Pro X version 10.3, I'm going to show you how to use the crop, transform and Ken Burns features. So coming over to this project here. So I've created this small kind of multicam flamenco video. So I've aligned them all using the audio waves, which are kind of aligned up to particular moments. So they're all playing at the same time, they're all in line, and they're sort of layered up. I'm using the audio from this one at the back here. So I just want to show you how these features for crop and transform work and what they do. So the first option here, you're going to go down to the bottom left hand corner of the viewer and you're going to click this little drop down menu and you go to the option of transform. When this option appears, you have all these little dots start to appear around the screen and this little dial in the middle. So the dial in the middle, if you grab hold of this blue dot, and give it a little rotate, there we go. You're going to see that it creates, it distorts the image, it tilts it, you can bring it upside down, all those kind of things. Command Z to undo. I think you can also see as I'm doing that there's an image appearing underneath. Now that's because you've tilted it to the side and the images that we have a couple of layers underneath these, so they're now starting to come into view. So I'm just going to disable this temporarily using the keyboard shortcut V. So it's now that it's like you kind of don't see them, that they don't exist. So come back up to here again. If you grab hold of any of the blue dots at the side or at the top, that distorts the image by pulling it in or stretching it out. And undo with Command Z. Same thing, squishing it or drawing it out. It's not one you tend to use too often as it's quite distorting, but you might use it maybe as a sort of keyframing it for a transitional effect. You can also use these corners in the side here to kind of draw it in to make it smaller, or to pull it out to make it bigger. And if you're going to pull it out to make it bigger, I would advise using this option here so you can kind of zoom in and out of the image. Maybe taking it down to 50% or down to 25% so you can see how much of the frame you're going to be using. Command Z to undo and back to fit. You can also choose grabbing hold of this portion in the middle, similar to our text, that determines where on the screen this happens to be. So I've decided for this particular demonstration, I'm going to make this smaller. So I'm going to show you how to do sort of like multi-screen options. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it really small. And I'm going to drag it and place it horizontally around about there. So I'm going to take these proportions that I've now established and I'm going to copy it using Command C. I'm going to go to this new one that I've now got and I'm going to enable it so you can see this. So we have our clip that's lying underneath. And I'm going to do Command Shift V, which is our paste attributes. Now I don't want to paste the volume adjustments, I don't want to paste the color corrections. I do want to paste the scale, but I don't want to paste the position. The scale is how small the video is, the position is where it lies on the screen. So I'm going to disable position but keep scale and click paste. So what that does is it keeps the scale, so it's the instruction to make it smaller, but it's not taking it over to adjust the position. I'm going to do the same thing now with this one and I'm going to pull this over to the side. It kind of balances out a little bit. There are some guides up here, review, try to save action zones that I might use to align my videos so that I know that they're nice and even. Let's put those in, hide my guides again. And I'm now going to copy, Command C, the attributes of this. I'm going to enable my final clip that's underneath and do Command Shift V. Disable the volume because I want the volume to still be here on this clip. I don't want the position, I just want the scale. And I'm going to click paste. So now what I have are 3 little videos. So if I click done now for the moment and play that, and see what that creates. So now we kind of have a sort of simultaneous multicam that's happening. So you're seeing all videos playing at the same time. It's quite small. If I do full screen, you'll see that that's a little bit bigger. So you could use this in quite a creative way. If I use the blade tool, the letter B, to cut a few sections of these. So maybe I don't want them all to kind of happen at the same time. So let's just blade a few, I'm being very rough, very, very random with these moments here. And what I'm also going to do is use the A selector to disable to detach the audio from this, because I want to actually be able to take moments out of this as well. So I'm going to do Control Select and go up to here to where it says Detach Audio, and I'm going to detach my audio. So I want my audio to be separate. with that in mind, I'm going to use the blade tool now just to cut a few moments of this out. And we're just going to see kind of what happens here as well. It's a very, very random edit. So now that I have all these little moments that I'm going to play with, I'm going to enable this V function that I have, so to disable. So I'm going to just use the V to disable particular moments. This is a very random edit, just to see what this does. I might drag this in using the position tool. Let's just have a little play, and let's full screen that to see how that begins to work. Okay, so I'll just say that I don't want this one to appear immediately. I'm going to draw this in, and that's going to happen there. So another thing you can do is, as these clips start to kind of come in and leave, they might come in a different place. So this one, for example, I might not want it to come into exactly the same place, and I might use transform to bring it up. Let's go back to my guidelines. So title zone. So I'm going to keep my orientation sort of similar. I'm going to use this as my guide. And then this one, when it pops in again, let's maybe have this down here. I'm going to keep this separate. Maybe this time when it comes in, it's going to come in here. Maybe this one here, I'll position this, pull this in a little, and maybe it's going to come in with my transition tool, maybe up here this time. Let's just have a little watch now and just see how this one's going to play out without my title action save zones, so you can see it a bit more clearly. We've used transform creatively to put a little twist on the multicam style edit. So I'm going to take these end clips here, just blade these, and I'm going to temporarily disable transform. So up here in my inspector, you can take the transform and you can disable it. By doing that, these clips are all now back to the same size that they were. And I'm going to temporarily disable these underneath clips so you can see what's happening clearly with this top one. So from here, we're going to work on the crop function. So if I go over here and click down here to where it says crop. Now crop has three different functions: trim, crop, and Ken Burns, and all have a slightly different appearance. So the first option, trim, what it does, which is different from the transform, if you grab the top and the bottom, it doesn't distort the image, but it, grab hold of them. Sometimes they're a little tricky to grab. Let's try the side one. Nope. Oh, that just makes my screen smaller. So you really want to grab hold of these, and you should be able to. It's not being exceptionally slow. Nope, it's being a little funny. There we go. Okay, so what it does with it by grabbing the top and the bottom is it doesn't display less of, it doesn't distort the image, but it shows you less of it. So it determines the portion of the screen that is in view. So you could take this little window. It's not. You can see the image underneath stays the same, but how much you see is has been determined by the trim. So if I just play that a little bit, you can see here you only see part of it. So you can use this in quite creative ways as well. So if you then wanted this particular portion to appear in a different part of the screen, you'd have to then go back to your transform option. Now this has now been enabled. It's been disabled, unfortunately, because it's made it really tiny. So I need to return these to where they were. Back to normal. And your scale could determine where, the transform can determine where in the screen it goes. So if you want to make it smaller, you use the trim tool. But if you then want to pull this up, maybe you have the feet at the top of the screen, for example. Do that, let's try that nice line. You'd have to use the transform tool for that one. Or if I undo that, maybe I just want to literally lie in the center of the screen. So that could come from my creative cut that I had beforehand, into just seeing the feet in a sort of creative view. So you have those kind of options with trim. So let me just do that and enable the next one. So with this one here, going back to our crop function, the second option here is crop. And crop is different from trim in that it actually narrows down the frame. So if I take the corners, so you can only adjust the corners and the dimensions don't change. So what it does is it takes the portion of the screen that you're interested in and it fills the screen with that portion. So if I click done here, you can see that that area has now gone in. If I went back to view to fit, I must have just done quite a big trim. So let's go back to crop again, not distort. Cool. So if I make it quite small, for example, drag it right into her body there and click done, it's going to show me just that portion of the screen. Now what it does do, unfortunately, is it reduces the quality a little bit. It's the same as like kind of cropping into a photograph and then blowing it up. You might start to see the pixels, it might start to look a little bit more blurry. Unless you're working with 4K footage in a 1080 kind of type scenario, the quality is going to reduce a little bit if you're going to play with your crops. But it can be useful. For example, in this clip itself, if I go back to where it was, I've got this little line here with the edge of the curtain. It can be useful sometimes just maybe for trimming out those little edges. And I've got that beautiful skirt that I might not want to get rid of, but I might just want to tidy up the frame just by pulling in that a little bit so I'm not seeing that edge of the curtain. So it can be useful just for sort of tidying up your frame a little bit or drawing particular attention to a moment that you have there. Now similarly, the third function of crop is Ken Burns. So I'm going to undo all these crops that I have here, put it back to normal and go to the Ken Burns feature. Now what the Ken Burns feature does is it's active over the length of the clip that you have. So this clip that I have here is 18 seconds, so that's quite long. So that's going to take 18 seconds to get from the start frame to the end frame. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller by using my position tool, dragging it in. So I'm just going to use this portion. So now this is only going to happen over 7 seconds, so it's a little bit more manageable and you'll be able to sort of see it a little bit more clearly. It's quite an interesting moment. So from here, what this does is it gives you a transition between frames, so start frame and an end frame. So this is showing you right now, it's going to give you a small transition inwards from a wide frame to a small one. So I'm going to make this even smaller so you can really see. So I'm going to have my start frame here and my end frame here. Now in relation to this, you kind of need to see where it's going to end. So that's going to end with their faces, which is quite interesting. You can preview this up here where it says play. So let's just preview that. So over 7 seconds it's going to zoom in and it's going to finish on their faces. So it's kind of created this little bit of movement. If you wanted to invert that, you use this function, so then it starts in and moves out. So if I preview that one, it starts really close and then opens out to a wider shot, like you've been using that for camera action. Now again, there's a slight reduction in quality. It was originally established, I believe, for photographs, to use for photographs. If you have a photo that you want to sort of scan over, I kind of look at maybe a photograph that's very vertical, or has a lot of length to it, or just doesn't have any movement in it at all, you can use the Ken Burns function to sort of like pan up, pan down, you know, kind of zoom in, zoom out, and it can be quite nice to use for photographs to give them a little bit of movement. Similarly, you can use it to, again, sort of pan across. I have my start frame and my end frame, let's have it maybe here. So start over. Oh, that's a bit too small, so keep it, it's kind of similar frames. I don't want them to start here and end here, so if I preview that, so if you can see this movement, it's going to move across the frame. And, move that out. So that's the function of the trim and the Ken Burns and the crop. Similarly, you can do up to down is another nice one you can use. The final option here is distort within these here. It's one I tend not to use too often. It tends to sort of have quite kind of abstract options to the frame. It really does, you can kind of twist it and maneuver it and kind of create these ones. Again, interesting for transitions sometimes if you want to have a play with those, but it's not one that I tend to use very often for visual effects. So kind of in a 3D sense, it kind of pulls it back and forwards as opposed to sort of side to side, or in those kind of dimensions. It brings that sort of third dimension into your video distortion. You can use it to flip the screen and all those kind of things. So yeah, so those are the basic functions here from your transform, crop, and distort. Thank you very much.